Around the world, wherever American servicemen and women are stationed, it's game time. Time for Sports Quiz. Welcome, everybody, to Sports Quiz, the fans versus the experts, the lively game of give and take in which you men and women of the armed forces challenge outstanding experts with the toughest questions you can throw their way. And now, stepping up to the question box, the man who'll pitch the posers, the chief quizzer himself, Sergeant Mel Allen.
Thanks a lot, Ed Hurley. Hello, everybody. Well, draw up a box seat and enjoy another set two with Sports Quiz, wherein our battery of sports experts strive to unravel knotty problems that pop up in a GI Bull session. This week's array of 4 stars is all set to meet your challenge in the form of sports teasers you send in from overseas. Remember, too, that in addition to their efforts to answer your questions, our guests are divided into 2 teams, the Reds and the Blues, and they'll compete against each other to see which team can come up with the most correct replies. So you see, it's a doubleheader, you fans versus the experts, and at the same time, the Reds against the Blues. Now the lineup for today's game. On my right sits the Blue team. The first introduction I'd like to make to you, news editor of the National Broadcasting Company, stepping in to show what he can do in the world of sports, Jesse Mass, and his teammate, that affable master football strategist and coach of the New York Giants, sizzling Steve Owen. On my left, the opposition, the Red team, consisting, first of all, of the new director of the Service Bureau of the National League, Artful Arthur Patterson, and his running mate, a guy who plays all positions on a field with equal facility, the Brooklyn Dodgers' own agile Augie Galland. All right, now, gentlemen, here are the ground rules. All questions have a point value fair to both sides. These points will be awarded at the end of each question and tabulated by our staff. Each team receives credit for as much of the question as it answers. The team that winds up with the highest total of points is declared the winner. And the prize, well, it's just that good old-fashioned pride in winning. Now, if you fail to answer correctly, I ring the bell on you like this, and then the question is thrown to the other team for an opportunity to pick up extra points. And each time you miss a question, by the way, you owe the sender an autographed picture of yourself. All right, gentlemen, batter up. And working on the theory that a good start augurs well for a triumphant ending, we'll slip this easy teaser to the team of Owen and Mass and see if it'll help you get the feel of things, gentlemen. Sergeant Frank Anderson of the European Theater of Operations points out that the name of Jacobs is prominent in the sports world. That being true, as I name 3 sports, you should be able to quickly name a proper sports figure by the name of Jacobs to go with each sport. First of all, boxing.
Mike Jacobs.
Mike Jacobs, that's fine, Mr. Owen. Or you could have said the late Joe Jacobs. Tennis.
Helen Jacobs.
Helen Jacobs, that's right, Steve. Incidentally, this question is good for 3 points. And the third part, horse racing.
Hurst Jacobs.
Hurst Jacobs, absolutely right, and good for 3 points. Very good answer, Steve. All right, to the team of Patterson and Galland, Arthur Patterson and Augie Galland. With no malice of forethought, it's common knowledge that the Brooklyn Baseball Club, through the years, has been called many names, official and otherwise, and it's a case of every man to his own choice. However, Private First Class Bert Levy of the European Theater of Operations wants you to recall 3 nicknames by which the Dodgers have been known in the years past.
Well, I know one anyway, Mel.
All right,
Robbins, they
Augie.
call the Robbins one.
Robbins, that's right, and that was...
That was after Wilbert Robinson, the former manager of the...
right, Mr. Patterson.
They were also called the Bridegrooms, and they were also called the Superbers.
Absolutely right, and then you get 3 points for your answer. Just by way of digressing for a moment, the Dodgers were called the Superbers. Do you remember why, Mr. Patterson and Mr. Galland? Of course, I don't expect
I
that you
can't
would
imagine why
necessarily...
they were ever called Bridegrooms, and I know darn well I can't remember why they were called Superb.
Well, I did a little research work of my own just by way of clarifying it. They were called Superbas for the manager owned. Ned Hanlon was the manager and owner of the ball club some years ago, and he produced a stage extravaganza called Superba. It was produced in Brooklyn, and his connection with the ball club in the show resulted in their calling the Brooklyn club the Superbas. The bridegrooms, they were called that because of a preponderance of elopements and benedictions over the prosperous period of 1899 and 1900 when the aforesaid Mr. Hanlon won pennants for Brooklyn. So,
Well, that's a stage extravaganza that they're still putting on out there.
After all, you're a teammate of Mr. Galan's tonight. You're not opposite him. Give him all the support you can. Well, we're off to a pretty good start. Both teams came up with that first one in pretty good shape. Now we come to football and to the team of Mass and Owen. Steve ought to handle this one pretty well. Immediately we put you right on the spot, Steve. You know, every fall, the airwaves are jammed with hard-working football announcers explaining the activity on the gridirons below, telling the listeners about the various offensive styles of play used by the teams. I'm going to name several of them, and you must tell us what coaches made these offensives famous. The first one, this is a 4-point question and 4 parts, 1 point for each part. The first one, the double wingback formation.
Well, I think that was originated by Pop Warner from Stanford and
right.
Carlisle.
That's right, Steve. Now the second part, T formation, which has grown very popular in recent years.
Well, that's very debatable about the T, but a lot of men are now taking credit for it, although it was played when I was in high school. And I think the fellow who did the most for the T formation was a fellow by the name of Ralph Jones, who coached the Bears during the time of Red Grange. I think he did more than any other fellow coaching the T.
That's very interesting to know. That as you mentioned, Steve, it has been a rather debatable topic just as to which coach or which individual popularized the T. I mean, there are those who say that the T goes back many, many years ago. The others who say that Clark Shaughnessy, who in recent years had quite a great deal of success with it out at Stanford, that he's been the one behind it. But I accept your answer since you.
Well, Shaughnessy coached Mel about 20 years before he used the T, so I don't think he had so much to do with popularizing it.
Was this the first year that the Army used it, Mel? I mean, Steve?
Yes,
Yeah, up at West Point.
yes.
They did pretty well with it. What do you think of the T, Steve?
Well, I think tea will give you a headache just the same as coffee, you know.
No
It's
extra
given me
points
a-
for that one.
It's given me a lot of them, I know that.
Well, let's move along. I got a question I do want to ask you, but I won't hold you up at the moment. Let's move along. The Notre Dame offense,
Well, Newt Rockney.
right? And finally, the A formation.
Well, that just happened, I think. It was somebody's bad dream.
Well, I hate to, we didn't mean to embarrass Steve Owen. Steve Owen himself is the one that popularized that formation, and that is the... That was the reason he was a bit bashful in answering it. The question I was going to ask you before, though, Steve, when we were talking about T formation, would you say, I don't mean to be putting words in your mouth, but when I asked you what you thought of the T formation, and you said you had as many headaches with that as with other formations, whatever they might be, would you say that actually the success or the thing that might dictate the use of any formation might depend on your material to a great extent?
Quite a bit, Mel. I know it seems like the teams that have the 2 big tackles and the big centers are the ones that win, no matter whether they're using the T or the double wing. And that has quite a bit to do with it, I'll tell you that.
In other words, if you've got about 24 men who meet the requirements of All-America caliber, we'll say, you could take almost any formation and they could play it and win.
With deep punt formation.
Mel, could I break the rules for 2 minutes?
Right.
Or 2 points, rather.
Right.
I'd like to offer the other side 2 points if Steve Owen will put his hands behind his back and don't go near that blackboard up there and describe the A formation.
Without the use of the hands.
He declines.
I decline.
You give him a piece of chalk and let him walk up to that blackboard, he could describe it very quickly. Well, 4 points for the team of Mass and Owen, and they seem to be doing quite well. The next question, as we move back to the team of Patterson and Galan. The next question we selected, gentlemen, on the theory that it would especially delight Augie. It comes, as you will no doubt guess, from a Brooklyn rooter. He'd like to, are there any Brooklyn rooters in the house? At any rate, this chap would like to have named 3 famous bonehead plays committed in the uniform of the New York Giants.
What do you mean 3? That's no limit to the number of bonehead plays the Giants pull.
Quite a few, huh, Red?
Yeah.
You're not kidding.
Well, I can name one I think is going quite a while back. Fred Merkel in the World Series game, and he forgot to touch second base was one I remember very well.
Well, that's right. It was back in 1908. I don't believe...
That wasn't in the World Series.
It wasn't in the World
game.
Series
It wasn't the World
game.
Series,
That was in the regular season game, and the loss of the game caused the Giants to have a playoff, 19-8.
That's right.
Last game of
They
the
lost it,
season.
didn't they?
Last game is right.
They lost
No, that was not the last game of the season. It was earlier than that, but they had to play a playoff game as a result of that game. That
They wound
caused
up in
a
a-
tie later in the season.
The season wound up with the Giants and Cubs in a tie for first place, as I remember it.
That's right.
And that's this particular game that caused all the discussion. It forced the playoff.
That's right.
All right, that's right. Fred Merkel's failure to...
Well, there was one. It wasn't exactly a bonehead play. It was a mechanical error, but it goes down as a bonehead play. Fred Snodgrass dropped a fly ball out in the outfield in a World Series game, as I remember it, against the Red Sox.
That's right, in the 1912
And there
World
was
Series.
another one when Heine Zimmerman chased Eddie Collins, one of the fastest men in baseball, across home plate.
That's right.
It wasn't exactly Heine's fault, though, because nobody was covering the plate.
That was that was his alibi, Heine Zimmerman. He always claimed the catcher wasn't the plate to take the throw, and he had to try to catch him before he reached home plate, and they always said that he chased him over.
He was in bad shape. All he had was the ball and the fastest man in baseball in front of him.
Well, that's a good answer. You get full credit for that. 3 full points. And now we move along to the team of Mass and Owen once again. Gentlemen, and this is a tough one. Things toughen up a little bit here. Through the years, famous sports personalities have at times been moved to express their feelings and philosophies in a most lyrical fashion. Now, your task is to identify the authors of the following coined expressions. First of all, this is a 5-point question, and there are 5 parts to it. First of all, I'll moiter the bum.
Oh,
Remember that, Mr. Mass?
I think the member of the Boston team, I think he's a catcher or a first baseman who later turned boxer.
Well,
is
you're
this baseball?
now.
Is this baseball or any sport?
Now you're. No, this can be any sport.
Oh, that's Tony Galento, I'd say then.
That's right,
the
absolutely
heavyweight
right.
From Jersey.
Tony Galento. Anytime that he had a fight with somebody, he was always bragging about the fact he was going to murder the bum. But it all usually turned. Somebody in the audience said, but he never did. That's not right. Lou Nova, however, remembers one. All right, here we go. The second part of it. If I had to be beaten, I'm glad it was by an American. Who said that? That goes back many years. Many, many years.
Well, I don't know exactly. It sounds like the result of a tennis match.
Well,
Steve, do you know?
we'll
I don't know.
we'll move along from that one. How about this one? Hit 'em where they ain't.
Oh, that was little Keeler.
That's right, Wee Willie Keeler.
The outfielder.
He always he was quite a place hitter, I believe.
That's right.
And that his expression was hit 'em where they ain't. Of course, that's what everybody would like to do. Is that right, Mr. Galan?
Absolutely. I'm having a tough time.
Hit 'em all on the nose today, but somebody in front of them.
That's right.
What about this one? When you lose, don't beef, but don't lose. That ought to be one, Steve, that might...
That sounds like any coach between halves.
Yes, I've heard a
far
lot
back
of
does
them
it go,
say that.
Mel?
That was said by a very famous coach who no longer is living. His name is Newt Rockney, that's right. Kind of gave you a little hint on that one. And this last one, I never called one wrong in my life.
Bill Clam.
Bill Clem, that's right, the famous umpire of the National League who,
The other one that we missed, Mel.
The other one-
Was that what sport was in?
if I had to be beaten, I'm glad it was by an American. I'll give you this much of a hint. It was in boxing. If you can't get it, we'll give you just...
oh, I
one
think
more second.
maybe Carpentier.
No. That whistle indicates the half-time. I'd like to have the bell rung right here, though, if we can have it rung. That's it. To signify the fact that the team of Owen and Mass missed a part of their question. They get 4 points out of the possible 5, and I'll give an opportunity to the team of Glenn and Patterson to see if they can pick up an extra point. Do you know who made that statement? If I had to be beaten, I'm glad it was by an American.
I think it was by either Sullivan or Corbett.
John L. Sullivan is absolutely right, and so you pick up an extra point. 1 point extra for the team of Patterson and Glenn. And the whistle that just blew calls timeout, gentlemen. We'll check the score up to this point. Meantime, you take the 7th inning stretch. And now the score stands as we've reached the halfway point. The team of Mass and Owen, Jesse Mass and Steve Owen, lead the team of Arthur Patterson and Augie Galland by a score of 11-7. But just so that there will be no misunderstanding, the team of Owen and Mass has had one more opportunity to answer a question than has the team of Galland and Patterson. But everything will even up before the final whistle blows. All right? As we move along, Galland and Patterson up at the bat. Here's a 2-part puzzler that may pose a problem for you, gentlemen, but then again, it may be just the kind of pitch you're looking for. First of all, for 4 points, 2 points to each part, in modern Major League Baseball, meaning within the last 25 years or so, has there ever been such a thing as a triple header? Of course, everybody knows there have been double headers, plenty of those, but what about a triple header?
Yes, that goes way back. That was a triple header for the last day of the season. And I think that was between Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
That's absolutely right, Augie Galland. Beautiful answer. That goes back to October 2nd, 1920, at Pittsburgh. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh were playing.
That's the year he was born. He remembers it distinctly.
The Cincinnati Reds won the first game 13-4 and won the second game 7-3, but lost the third one 6-0. And the third game was called on account of darkness in the 6th inning.
About time.
The second part of the question. In modern Major League Baseball, there once was a regular player who went a whole season without ever hitting into a double play, but yet he hit into a triple play. Who was it?
You want me to answer that, Red? You better answer.
You can answer
Augie Galland.
Augie Galland, that's absolutely right.
He did it with the Cubs in 1935, and he should remember that year pretty well because that put him in he got in the World Series that year when the team won the last 21 games of the season.
That must have been quite a streak, Augie.
Certainly was, Mel.
Was that the year that the manager drove a spike into his shoe every time you won a ball game?
We did about everything, I think, Red.
Who was managing the club then, by the way?
Charlie Grimm was our manager then.
I think he drove a tack or a nail into his shoe every time they won a ball game. They called him Leadfoot Charlie at the end of the season.
Augie, during that stretch, were any peculiar happenings, while we digress for a moment here, in that 21-game winning streak?
Well, seemed like every ball game we won, Mel, something happened. I think we went, I think there was about 4 or 5 games in that 21-game streak that we won in the last inning, coming behind 2 runs, 1 run. And I recall the game that we cinched the pennant against the Cardinals, and it was against, Paul Dean was pitching against us, and we beat them 1-0 to win the pennant. That was, won the game on Cabaret, hit a home run. That was quite a ball game.
I guess that's one that would stand out in your memory.
How old was Cavaretta then, Augie? He must have been a boy then.
He was just turned 18.
Just turned 18 years old. And that hit was worth a few $1,000s, I guess, by putting the boys into the series.
Quite a few.
Well, that's a very fine answer, and one we appreciate, and it's good for 4 points. And, of course, that ties the score now. We all even up 11-11 as we move along. Steve Owen and Jesse Mass come to bat now. Here's a baseball poser really tax your memory a little bit. And like all Gaul, it's divided into 3 parts. Good for 3 points. First of all, who became a World Series star by making an unassisted triple play?
Old chap out in Brooklyn in 1920.
Wambagans.
Bill Wambagans.
Bill Wamsgans, but it was against Brooklyn, that's right.
1920 was right, wasn't it?
1920, he
Cleveland.
played with the Cleveland Indians against the Brooklyn Dodgers in the 1920 World Series.
Who was the third out?
Which was the...
Say.
We're asking all the questions right here, Mr. Patterson. I bet you know the answer to it, though, don't you?
I know who the third out was. Otto Miller.
Otto Miller. He was a catcher for the Dodgers in those
That's right.
days, wasn't he? Bill Wamsgans for Cleveland made the unassisted triple play against Brooklyn in the 1920 World Series. All right, the second part. Name a pitcher who won 3 games from the Philadelphia Athletics in a World Series and shut them out in all 3 games.
Christy Matheson.
Christy Matheson, Big Six in the Giants Athletic Series of 1905. That must have been a few years before your time, Mr. Mass.
Oh, about a dozen. No, I'd say half dozen.
All right, fine. A good answer. And third and the last part of this question, what team upset all pre-series predictions by winning 4 straight from a wonder team?
Red Sox, wasn't it? Or Boston Braves?
The Boston Braves, Steve, beat the Philadelphia Athletics in 1914. That was the team that was in last place July 4th and
won the pennant.
Finally came up and won the pennant. I think that's the instance they always cite as an exception to the rule that the team that's in first place on July 4th usually goes on to win a pennant. Is that right, Mr. Patterson?
That's right. George Stallings was the manager of the team and got to be known as the Miracle Man.
That's right.
That's right. Well, thank you very much for a very fine answer again, team of Mass and Owen. 3 good points for you. Now, moving along to the team of Patterson and Glenn as we move into the home stretch. Gentlemen, your careers have brought you in contact with many World Series as observer or participant, spectators, the case may have been, with such a storehouse of knowledge at your beck and call. See if you can tell me the teams that opposed each other in World Series play if I give you the names of the competing managers. This is a 5-point question, one you'll have to listen to very closely. The first one, Huggins versus Bush. Huggins versus Bush.
Yankees in Pittsburgh.
Yankees in Pittsburgh, that's right, 1927. The Yankees won that World... Yankees, beg pardon?
1-4 straight.
1-4 straight, that's right, from the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right, the second part, Mack versus McCarthy.
That would be the Athletics and the Cubs.
That's right, the Athletics and the Cubs.
1929.
1929. The Athletics won that World Series 4-1. I thought it might trip you there for a moment. Joe McCarthy, of course, won most of his pennants and World Championships with the Yankees, but that was the first Major League pennant he ever won when he was in the National League with the Cubs. All right, what about this one? Robinson versus Speaker.
That would be that Wamsgans series, 1920 Dodgers and Indians.
That's right. And the fourth one, Frisch versus Cochran.
St. Louis and Detroit.
St. Louis and Detroit, that's absolutely right. That was in 1934. And Terry versus Cronin.
Washington and New York Giants.
That's absolutely right. 1933, the Giants won that World Series 4-1.
Terry's first year with the club.
Absolutely right, and a good answer, and 5 good points for you, too. All right, now to the team of Mass and Owen. Gentlemen, inasmuch as there's supposed to be strength in numbers, here's a chance for you to pick up some points and solidify your position. Right now, I might say, though, that your position is not too solid since the team of Patterson and Glenn have moved ahead of you 16-14. Private First Class Earl Turley in the ETO has sent in 5 sets of figures, each of which is identified with a sport. You name the sport to which these figures refer. First of all, 18.2.
Billiards.
Billiards, that's right. 18 refers to the distance from the cushions to the balk line. 2 is the number of shots allowed in any one compartment. All right? 6-2-2-1.
Well, that's a common defense used in football, I imagine.
That's right. That's a defensive lineup. What about this? This is a 5-point question, by the way, 5 parts to it. 6-2-7-5-6-2.
Tennis.
Tennis, that's right. That would refer to tennis, the way you call your tennis scores. 5 and 3.
5 and 3.
That's right. 5 and 3.
The word "and" is important in there.
It is. We'll move down then to the next one. Our time is getting along here. 580, 470, 310.
Good old mutual ticket.
That's right. That would be horse racing. All right, we'll go back to the 5 and 3. You have 4 points out of the possible 5, and another chance. The opposition is fervently requesting an opportunity to pick up extra points. This 5 and 3, I will say this: it could be the numbers themselves could be changed a little bit. It could be. I just use those numbers.
5 yards to go and third down.
No, we'll have to ring the bell on you, I'm afraid, and give you 4 out of the possible 5 points. And Mr.
5
Patterson.
and 3 would be golf. 5 up and 3 to go.
That's right, Mr. Patterson. 5 and 3 refers to match play golf scores, and you have an extra point you picked up for your side.
That's an old man's game anyhow. He'd know about it.
Yeah, and he plays it.
All right, here we go, and just time for this one last question for the team of Patterson and Glenn, and here we go. It's always nice to be able to put things in their proper places, you know. Corporal Ray Schuessler in the Pacific has sent in 5 groups of athletes. In each group, which contains 4 names, 1 name is out of place. Your burden is to spot the misplaced athlete, tell us what sport all the athletes are identified with. First of all, for 5 points, Joe Hunt, Welby Van Horn, Bobby Riggs, Augie Galland. Who's the misplaced athlete?
Joe Hunt,
Welby Van Horn, Bobby Riggs, Augie Galland. Which athlete is out of place?
Joe Hunt.
All right. Well, we'll move along now. Maybe you misunderstand the question. I give you a list of names.
They all have to be the same sport?
One man in that list of names is out of place. Joe Hunt, Welby Van Horn, Bobby Riggs, Augie Galland.
Give him the gong.
All right, let's move along to the next one. Dick Metz, Byron Nelson, Dusty Bogus, Henry Pickard. Which one is out of place there?
Well, that Dusty Bogus must be out of place. That's an umpire.
Oh, that's right. Who are the other men?
Dick Metz a golfer, Henry Pickard's a golfer.
The others are golfers. Dusty Bogus is an umpire.
Well,
all
we
right.
were right on the first one, too, because Joe Hunt's a tennis player, and the rest of them were...
Well, Joe Hunt, Welby Van Horn, Bobby Riggs.
Galland is no tennis player.
All right.
Oh, you should see him play.
I really had to draw that one out. All right, here you are. Frankie Kovacs, Lee Oma, Max Baer, Billy Kahn.
Frankie Kovacs.
All right, why?
Well, the others are
Fighters,
and Kovacs is a...
Kovacs is a tennis player.
He's a tennis player.
All
I'm
right.
a fighter.
Bill Nicholson, Sammy Sneed, Paul Weiner, Ben Chapman.
Sneed.
Sammy
He's a
Sneed's out
golfer,
of
the
place.
others are baseball players.
All right, and finally, Sammy Ball, Ken Strong, Arturo Godoy, and Parker Hall.
Godoy.
Arturo Godoy, he's a boxer. The others are professional football players, and you get 5 full points, and that's the final whistle, gentlemen. The game's over, so stand by while the official scorer checks the final count. It's been a real pleasure having you. Steve Owen, Jesse Mass, Arthur Patterson, and Augie Galland, and we hope you'll all be able to come back again. And now the final score has been posted, and the winning team is the team of Patterson and Galland, who defeated the team of Mass and Owen 22-18. Now, until next week, this is Sergeant Mel Allen wishing everybody everywhere so long and good luck. This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.